Please.
We went to a conference day at University College London with some A-level students, some Year 13 students, and in the lunch break, a teacher and an ex-medical student gave us a session on revision, specifically for sort of A-level, and then she sent the PowerPoint out to us afterwards, and it just struck me that there's a lot of things in here that our kids could benefit from if we go through it with them. There's some quite nice little tasks to get them into, and then she links it to quite a lot of research as well that's been done. And it's little things that if we all said to year 10, 11, 12, 13 could really benefit them over 3 or 4 years of education. So the first thing she did is she, sort of classic thing, picked one person up, got them to look at the board for 5 seconds and turn around and recall the numbers. And she did that with increasingly long lists of numbers. And then she got them to do it backwards. Alright? So this takes 5-6 minutes, get them to do it. Kids get engaged, they actually quite like this. And her point was this, it's all about working memory. So it's how we actively take information in. And she put this up on the board and she didn't actually speak, she said, read that. Yeah? And then she clicked onto the next slide, which says, what did the previous slide say? No one can sort of recall it because you're not taking it in, because it's all written text, isn't it? Mm. And she's coming up to sort of the first revision tip here, which is make sure that you work succinctly, short, brief notes, and she changes it here to just give 4 sort of bullet point colour-coded definitions. And that's instantly the kids are going, no, actually that's quite easy to remember, there's not as much there to remember. And when we look at the 2 tasks we just did, generally, when you do that task with anyone, people can remember between about 7 numbers plus or minus 2, alright, on average. When you ask them to do it backwards, they can only do 5 plus or minus 2. And it's the fact that you've introduced another task, another level of complexity on what you're asking the brain to do. So what we need to do is to make notes that are succinct and relevant. Don't just copy everything out, don't get a textbook, don't copy swaths of text out, make succinct bullet points. I mean, this is things we've been doing with kids for a long time, yeah? But how many of them need reminding to do it? I mean, my A-level students are awful. So Year 13s, I look at their notes and they're still making page and page of notes. And you think by that age they really should know what they're doing. Alright? Then, don't revise something you don't understand. Don't try and learn something for the first time through revision, because you're not going to learn it. Okay? You might as well be trying to learn that, and that's the base sequence for a gene that codes for a certain enzyme. And this is very specific to A-level biology, but you could go in and edit this so you could put any sort of sequence of numbers or text in there. And then this bit's quite nice. What she's done here is know the main errors that you make. So we've got things like not reading the question properly, therefore giving a completely different answer to the one that was expected. Not quite sure what the answer is, okay, given the information you had. Not giving the full number of points in a 5-mark question, only responding to 3 things. Not quoting data that's provided, you know, these are specific to science and biology. But you could go in and change these. Describing a graph instead of explaining, so not understanding key trigger words. And then these are some sort of really specific ones you put in just for A-level biology, so you could, and if anything comes up in common on your syllabus. Okay, just saying respiration instead of anaerobic or aerobic for us is quite important. Saying facilitated diffusion instead of using carrier proteins, all these sort of things. So you could go in here and insert stuff that you know kids do all the time, that you can get them to think about at this point. So I won't dwindle on that. And then, where can we find these errors? Where can you actually find where these errors occur? So you've got examiners' reports. They're all available for anyone to see. Kids can go and get those on the exam sites. You know, go to AQA, go to OCR. The examiners' reports are all there. I mean, we could produce them for them, but the sort of kids who are going to benefit from this and the ones who are really going to revise and we can sharpen up, we need to direct them to it. Then you've got textbooks have got nice little bits in as well. I've been using these for years with the kids, always remember the examiner's tips. Then you've got documenting your own errors, teachers, so that goes back to my spreadsheet that I've used in the past, or going through and analysing exam papers and getting kids to think of those, go back and get them to think about what their errors are. One thing she doesn't talk about in here that I know kids do all the time is when they revise, they'll revise the stuff they're comfortable with and they enjoy. So they get the parents off their back and go, actually I've done 2 hours of revision, but have you learned anything? No, you've learned nothing. Yeah. My year 13 last 2 weeks ago, I said, right, we're doing presentations. Oh, can I do this? Can I do this? I said, no, this is what you're doing because I know you. And then they went, oh, I don't know that. I'm really rubbish at that. I was like, yeah, that's why you're doing it. But as a result, they all came and produced really good presentations, and I think they really got something out of their independent work from it. So I think there's quite an onus on us as teachers to know what they don't know. Yeah. But help them to sort of work it out. And this bit's interesting as well. If I play this, textbooks don't always get it right. Okay. That was found in 2 textbooks. Incorrect equation. I mean, massively incorrect. And then when you actually look at what the exam board's published, this is what's in the textbooks. This is a percentage of that topic that's covered in the textbook compared to what you're going to get from past papers. And I was doing this today. I taught a section to my year 12 biologist today that's not in any of the textbooks, but it's in the specification. And if I hadn't sat and read the specification last night, there's a whole section there that they would not have covered themselves, and I wouldn't have covered. You know, so we can't rely on textbooks. We can't even rely on past exam papers because sometimes there's little bits in the specification that they will test that could just be a sentence and they'll put a huge question in. So as teaching staff, we need to know our spec. I really do believe in that, because if we don't, we can trip them up. Then using the mark schemes appropriately. Just use mark schemes. For us especially, I could give you 15 questions which could be asked in a number of different ways, but the mark scheme will be identical every time. You know, an evolution question, a speciation question, an enzyme question, a diffusion question. They all want the same key points every time in the response. What we have to do is train the kids to know those response points, but then be able to identify when to respond like that in the exam question. So what type of question is that going to be an appropriate response for? And then we get into a little bit of research, which I quite enjoy this bit. This bit's funny. So you show them all a load of pictures in order, one after the other, give them 5 seconds on each one, and then say, right, now write them all down. How many did you get? And this is classic. This is just human intelligence, human behaviour. You remember most of the stuff at the beginning, most of the stuff at the end, but nothing in the middle. Yeah, so if you sit and cram at the last minute for an exam, if you've learnt anything of any value in the bulk middle part of it, it was pointless, because you're not going to recall it, you're not going to remember it. And this is what I say all the time to kids: you're better off doing 20 minutes a day on each subject with a 5-minute break in between, because that way you're not having this huge bulk of time in the middle where stuff's being forgotten. You're going to retain it more. And then we get to state learning dependence. I like this, state dependent learning. This is all to do with what state you're in when you learn stuff compared to when you recall it. Now, this is a real study. You could share this with the kids. This was all right with A-level and GCSE. But these guys, Berner and Stern, actually did this experiment. They got a group of adults, and they split them into 2 groups on the first day, gave them something to learn, got one half drunk on 80% vodka, the other half sober. They then got them back a week later, split them up again into random groups, and gave them an assessment. And this time, they got one half drunk on 8% vodka, and the other half sober. And what's really interesting with this is obviously the group that was sober at learning and sober at recall do the best. Second best group are the ones who were drunk when they learnt it and drunk when they recalled it, because their mind, their brain, their body was in the same state. So they could recall it easier. Okay, and obviously the worst was when they were sober and then drunk. Yeah? Because obviously that's not a good thing. But it's little things you can do with that, you know. Where are you going to sit your exams? You say to the kids, well, in a hall with loads of other people in a big, quiet, open space. Where do you revise? In my bedroom. That's just stupid. With music on. Don't. You want to be revising in the library. For this to have an effect, you want to be revising in the library. Maybe have different flavoured waters when you're revising certain topics. Maybe wear different perfumes. Yeah, so you go into your French exam with a certain perfume on, that will trigger that. And this is just classic behavioural studies that we know as biologists work. But our kids do it, and that's why I say, when are you ever going to be in a situation in an exam where you're listening to music? You might say you learn best like that, but you're never going to have the chance to recall the information in that state, so don't do it. And when you actually have that conversation, especially with the slightly brighter year 11s, they go, okay, you might have a point there, sir, and they start to think about it.
To talk about them burning, like a certain oil or something in their bedroom when they're revising. I've been doing this for years, and then use something like orange or lavender, and then put a dab of it on a Kleenex or a tissue and on your pulse points. Go into the exam, and loads of research that's been done that if you then sniff it, it'll take you back. It'll bring it back.
Olfactory memory
is
stronger than any other form of memory. We've all experienced it. You've smelled something and then you've been taken back to when you were 6 years old. You know, I smell cut grass, and I go back to being playing cricket when I was like 10 on the field. And that's because that's how our brains have evolved.
That's right.
This is, again, classic information, but it never hurts. Okay, repetition of information. So we've got time down here and percentage that we're able to recall. Okay, you want to commit it to long-term memory, basically. Why are we all so brilliant in our subjects? Because we're up here. You know, 14 years I've been teaching enzymes on a cycle. I've been teaching diffusion. I know this stuff. The kids say, you're so intelligent. I say, no, I'm not. I just know lots and lots of stuff because it's in my long-term memory. Yeah? And you could be the same if you actually approached it in that way and went home and spent 10, 15 minutes reviewing what we do, and then on a weekend breaking it down and reviewing it again. Then you don't ever actually have to revise because you've learnt it all inside out. Then we've got some sort of summary points here, which you could print off and give to the kids just to get them to think about. So working environment, recording errors, those sort of things, and then some references at the end. And that's pretty much it. But I thought that was really useful, and it's on the, I put it on the school poll under 15-minute forum revision. Alright, so the staff resources.
So I go staff resources?
If you go to computer, staff resources, and then there's a folder that is staff resources, isn't there?
Sometimes you have to go staff
There we
resources
go.
again.
And then it's down here loose. I didn't put it in there this morning. There it is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right, so
Very good.
15, 20 minutes you could play with the 2 slides where you want to put specific stuff in for your subject, but She was really good the way she delivered it in the big auditorium, and I just thought that's something we should really do. We've done it with our 12s and our 13s, so I'm going to do it with my year 11s once I've taught them everything. But it might be nice, it's the sort of thing that would be nice to get year 11 together,
Yeah.
maybe in a hall and present it to them, do it properly. I'm thinking about it if we ever have a revision day or a focus like that.
No, it's very good, and I think putting in that, the research in there as well, they like that.
Yeah, they like that.
They like seeing that,
Yes,
oh,
they
it
do.
has worked, and, you know, it's been proven that it
Yeah.
works.
Yes. Yeah, they do like that.
Correct. Thank you very much,
That's
Malcolm.
all right.
Thank you,
Really good
yeah,
work.
lovely.